Hey, YouTube. Join me for a journey of redemption and second chances in part 1 of Izuku x Momo's story. It's an emotional roller coaster filled with twists and hope. Subscribe, snack up, and let's dive into the beauty of growth together. It happened almost overnight, but it was foreseen long before and ignored for the common good. The situation? A war, of course, like never before on Earth. The line between heroes and villains vanished almost instantly when it began and lasted so long without a clear winner. In the end, all that remained was a planet-sized piece of rock with little chance of being habitable. Due to constant attacks, the Earth's atmosphere shattered, and there was no defense against the dangers of space. Only two survived, once a heroine who fought for good, and the rational part of the war, and the other. One who initiated it, once considered the world's symbol, victorious over the ultimate villain and the most powerful being on Earth. It's not that he wanted to start a war, and he didn't believe that killing 3 demons posing as heroes would cause so much harm. People took him to another point in the conflict, and thanks to the villains, the flame of hatred only grew, drowning the world. This was the result: only 2 survived, and they could hardly repair the damage done. "Where are we?" he asked, looking around. A cave with a water source. Oh my God. Without waiting, he went to drink from it, caring little if it was potable or not. The world had gone to hell. "This is the last place with water on planet Kree," he said, sitting back, looking at what was once the top hero in a place known as Japan. "So, is this how it all ends?" She spoke with fear and sadness. "There must be a way," she murmured to her companion, who looked disinterested at the destroyed wasteland. "If you looked at the sky, you could see the stars despite it being morning. Who knows, maybe you can create a device to fix this. Wait, you don't have enough lipids to create anything. Not to mention, the oxygen you'd consume would kill you instantly, leaving this rock empty. There must be a way." She saw herself in the water with pain, almost skeletal. If it weren't for her friend, she would probably have died long ago. "You can fix this, right?" She turned with a wild idea. "I don't know what you mean," he played dumb, hoping to die quickly to avoid this conversation. "Izuku, please, that doesn't work with me," she shouted at the green-haired guy who sighed. "You can time travel. You can go back and fix this, prevent everyone from dying." "Prevent?" She fell silent, remembering. "Prevent Shoto from dying? Or killing your beloved fire palette?" he asked the black-haired girl, who lowered her gaze. "I already told you I don't blame you for that, Izuku," she smiled sadly. "Don't you want to see her again?" she asked, trying to excite the freckled guy. "No. She would be alive if I hadn't met her, and this wouldn't have happened," he shouted bitterly. "That's my point. Let's go back, stop the 3 idiots before they do something, and that's it." It sounded like a good plan. "Things don't work that way, Momo," he sighed at his friend's idea. "Does that mean you're considering it?" she released with mockery before coughing and falling to the side of her friend. "Izuku. Please. I want to live. And I know you do too. All right, what do you have in mind?" He yielded to her again. "Let's go back to the past. Fix this," she said with difficulty. "I can only make us travel once, and I can't control how far back it sends us." The black-haired girl looked at her friend desperately. "All right, what do you plan to do once we get there?" "I'll try to change those 3, make them true heroes," she spoke with difficulty. "If you fail, let me handle it. Clear?" The black-haired girl nodded without hesitation. "All right, give me your hand." The black-haired girl extended her hand to take her friend's. It was cold. "How does it work?" she asked, trying to stay alive. "There's no quirk that time travels, so I merged a few to make it happen. We'll go back on our steps, Momo." The black-haired girl fought to stay awake. "You'll feel a sharp pain when it happens. I assure you your memories will be intact. Ready?" The black-haired girl nodded slightly. "All right. Soul control, increase x10, 1 for all 100%, mental order." He looked at his hand, smiling slightly. "Rewind." The freckled hero shone with his black-haired friend, and suddenly they disappeared from that place. Momo felt like she was in a washing machine, unable to feel her legs or arms, only sharp pain barely letting her open her eyes. When she did, she saw an endless array of things, past, present, and future, without physical or scientific limits, a sea of strangeness and possibilities that amazed her more than anything. She closed her eyes tightly from the extreme pain in her organs, feeling like they were being pulled inward, becoming small again, and it hurt like hell. Even trying to scream, nothing came out of her burning throat. "Ah!" she finally screamed, opening her eyes with fear. "Momo." Her father entered, scared when he heard his daughter scream. He looked confused, glancing around. "Momo, sweetheart." "Dad?" She looked at her father and cried. She saw her father again. Didn't take long to go and hug him with all the strength a 4-year-old could muster. "Dad." Wow, someone had a nightmare. With a smile, he took his daughter in his arms, leaving the room. "Come, today you'll sleep with us so you don't have to be afraid of anything, alright?" "That's the best idea I've heard." With much joy, she clung to her father, crying a little. She missed that feeling. "Wow, you're taking it well," sounded in her mind, to which she pouted. "We need to meet as soon as possible." "Don't bother thinking of a response, I can't hear you like this. Tomorrow at the Central Park in Musatafu." "Momo, Izuku, dummy," with a pout, she settled just when they arrived and saw her mother smiling at her. On the freckled guy's side, he woke up with a strong headache, looking at his hands, smiling to himself knowing that his idea worked, bringing both of them to the past. He closed his eyes and fists, focusing on something inside him. It was weak, but there it was, the remnants of All for One were in him. From what he could deduce in the relationship with One for All, the more he used, the faster it would run out. He smiled maliciously and looked out the window, using the quirk Mandalay left him before dying to contact his time-traveling companion. They needed to clarify facts and set plans in motion, or she would. Izuku already had a plan ready, elaborating it since he obtained Eri's quirk. How he missed the brat, and there wasn't much to do now, just rescue her and change that horrible and grim future she lived in. "If the Earth loses, I promise I'll avenge it," he murmured to nothing with a serious gaze. Izuku entered his parents' room stealthily, unsure of the exact date, which made it challenging to orient himself. He looked at the large bed and saw his father embracing his mother, who had traces of tears. He mentally noted this and moved on to the cabinet next to the bed. Mom always keeps important papers there, and despite Dad's preference to keep them where his son couldn't find them, the green-haired boy always won with his puppy eyes, which Hisashi couldn't resist. Opening the first paper, it was about the hospital and concerned Izuku. From the date, it was no more than 2 days ago. Well, he's at the point where his life is a mess, Part 1. Not far enough in time for his father to accept the overseas position and just close enough for beatings from Bakugo. This was going to hurt either way. He approached his mother, smiling melancholically. A tear escaped him. At least his mother had a peaceful and quick death. He kissed her forehead and went to his room. It was a complete mess. Trash scattered on the floor, and the computer played All Might's video on a loop. He approached to play it again, smiling at the memory of his bad teacher. Izuku had been in a similar situation, saving many in a short time, and that's why a significant part of the population on the good side hailed him as the great hero. On the other side of the coin, it was the Green Death that brought despair to his enemies. He shook his head, letting those memories go as quickly as they came. That wasn't going to happen, and he would make sure it didn't. His plan had no flaws, it just required waiting. The next day, he woke up much more rested than in his last years. The sun's warmth on his skin wasn't stifling, and he didn't need Tetsu's or Endeavor's quirks to endure it. He stretched as much as he could and went to the kitchen, where his mother was humming a completely unfamiliar song, still feeling guilty for not giving her son a quirk to fulfill his dreams. "Izuku." The child clung to his mother's leg, surprising the green-haired woman. "Inko?" She turned off what she was doing and lifted the child, who quickly enveloped her in a warm hug. "Is something wrong, dear?" "You don't have to be sad, Mom," he said, still in his embrace, surprising the green-haired woman. "Even if I don't have a quirk, I'll be a child you can be proud of because you're the best mom in the universe," he declared, and a tear of happiness escaped Inko. "Sweetie, come here." So the green-haired woman took her son into a tickle war that the freckled boy adored. "Can I go to the park after eating?" he asked with excitement. "Of course, little one," she said, putting her son back on the floor. "Just make sure to eat everything." The freckled boy nodded happily and went to the living room. He ate his breakfast relatively calmly. He wanted to tease the black-haired girl a bit, and what better way than making her wait a bit for his arrival? Having some fun once in a while wouldn't hurt. He arrived half an hour after the time he was supposed to meet his companion, walking slowly, obviously accompanied by his mother, who watched over her child. "I'm going to be around there," he pointed to the playground, and his mother nodded to that. "Be careful, Izuku." The woman sat next to a very elegant lady who looked at her daughter tenderly, playing in a toy castle. The freckled boy didn't take long to go there, looking mockingly at the black-haired girl who had an adorable pout of anger. He knew well how much she hated when people arrived late, and yet he did it. "If you say you got lost on the path of life, I'll bury you in sand, she said angrily to the freckled boy, who just smiled, entering the toy castle. I can't spend some time with Mom? The black-haired girl sighed. It might sound like mockery, but she knew the freckled boy well and how much he missed his loved ones. Sorry. I'm a bit stressed with all this, she said, shivering in her place. Relax, everything will be fine, he assured with confidence. I know, she calmed down as much as she could and looked at the freckled boy. Well, I have an idea of how to deal with all this. I'm all ears, he sat in front of the black-haired girl, who smiled. We know that the problem that caused all this is that both Bakugo, Kamakiri, and Mineta did something bad, she spoke, trying not to touch a delicate subject for both. As a result, a war will break out. The answer is simple. And it is? He spoke with humor, knowing what she was planning. I will guide the three on the right path. That's why I'll ask Dad to put me in the same school as you. That way, I'll get closer to Bakugo and try to change his ways. The freckled boy opened his mouth to speak but was stopped by the black-haired girl. I know what you're going to say. Regarding Kaminari and Mineta, I've already thought about it. If they never meet, they can't organize themselves, so we just have to make Kaminari go to UA and leave Mineta out, simple. There are many flaws in that plan. The freckled boy didn't get discouraged, and the black-haired girl just smiled more. 1. Bakugo will be driven by his surroundings, and if you try to change him, you'll have the whole world against you. 2. Even if Kaminari is in UA, he's still a pervert and, at some point, a drunkard, so it's of little use if he still has the tools to do harm. And 3rd, even if Mineta isn't in UA, he can enter any other hero academy. The arrogant smile of the girl made everything clear to the freckled boy. Do you have everything prepared, right? I knew you would refute the idea, so I thought of something good. Maybe I don't want to make enemies with everyone, so I'll use the money I have and buy the people who affected Bakugo the most in his arrogance. The freckled boy smiled at that. With Kaminari, we just have to put him in general courses, and if that doesn't convince you, we can send him to another academy. With Mineta, it's simple. I'll attract him before the entrance exam takes place and leave him stranded somewhere on the other side of Japan. Letting Mineta touch you? He exclaimed with dramatic panic. Not even dead. I'll just attract him, put him to sleep somehow, and have him taken as far away as possible. Simple, she said with a smile. Great ideas, praised the freckled boy, knowing it would end badly. And what do you have in mind in case I can't achieve it? She asked. Since you fail with any of those things, it's simple. He smiled sadly at his black-haired friend, who didn't like that. I'll speed up my acquisition of All for One, he said abruptly, putting the black-haired girl tense, who just hugged her green-haired friend. Momo lay on her big bed, staring at the ceiling as the most interesting thing at that moment. Her friend's plan kept swirling in her mind. When he spoke, a lump formed in her throat, and fear seized her. In the decisive battle against All for One, Izuku acquired One for All. He faced the villain and, in a final attempt to obtain One for One passed his quirk to Izuku. The freckled boy fell motionless, later revealing that he struggled against the multiple versions of the villain to control such power. A couple of years later, the incident with the three idiots led to the war. Momo, hugging her pillow, cried, longing for Izuku's comforting embrace. Why do you have to suffer so much? It was so unfair what happened to her green-haired friend, born without a quirk, given one that broke his bones, and then obtaining one with greater power that nearly drove him insane. How much more did he have to endure for the world to be happy? Momo didn't know, but she was determined to change it. These years, supposed to be filled with harassment and abuse, would transform into ones where he had a friend. Her decision was made. She would ensure Izuku had his best years by his side. The following week, Izuku arrived at his elementary school. Kids pointed and laughed at him, and Bakugo mocked him. Now he understood why, and the irritation was overwhelming. Stupid kids. Katsuki, look, it's just Deku. The blonde arrived with a smile, and Izuku buried his face in the table. Eh? All right, children, the teacher entered with a fake smile and tired eyes. We have a new classmate. I hope you get along with her. Excitement spread among them at the prospect of a new friend. Go ahead. The girl entered with an innocent smile, hopping around. The kids blushed at her adorableness, and the girls hoped to be her friends. Izuku sighed, resigned to his fate. Introduce yourself, dear, the teacher smiled at the girl, who nodded. Momo, hello, my name is Yaoyorozu Momo. Nice to meet you all. She smiled innocently, and everyone thought she looked so cute. Izuku, thinking, this is going to be a long one, he sighed, keeping his face on the table. Sit wherever you like, the teacher gestured, and Momo greeted the green-haired boy next to her. Momo, hello. She greeted Izuku, who sat up and smiled at his new friend. Izuku, hi, I'm Midoriya. Nice to meet you, Yaoyorozu-chan. He spoke as if he hadn't known her for most of his life. Momo, nice to meet you, Midoriya-tan. She spoke tenderly, and Izuku smiled. Maybe his time until UA wouldn't be so bad. Classes began with basic things for kids, the torture of the years to come. Izuku and Momo waited patiently for it to end so she could start applying her master plan. Katsuki, you better stay away from him, he spoke as the teacher left the room. Momo, and why is that? She asked innocently. Katsuki, because he's quirkless, good for nothing. He pointed with a strange smile. Momo, oh. She looked at Izuku and hugged him like a teddy bear. He's squishy. The reaction was immediate. No one expected the new girl to do that to Deku. Katsuki, what do you think you're doing? Deku is dumb, and I bet his feet stink, he said angrily. Momo, could it be that you're jealous? The blonde froze. Are you jealous that he's squishy? That's a lie. Kachan said he stinks, a girl next to him spoke. Momo, well, why don't you come and check? She approached the girl, guiding her to Izuku's hair. See? It's squishy. The girl, with stars in her eyes, played with Izuku's hair. Ooh, it's soft. Izuku, please stop. He tried half-heartedly to free himself from the girl who remained absorbed in her world. Momo, are you Katsuki, right? The sweet girl approached the blonde, who turned red at how close she was. You shouldn't be so mean to Midoriya-tan. He hasn't done anything wrong. She accused with an adorable pout. Katsuki, he has done something wrong. He believed I was weak and. He felt cornered under the girl's judgmental gaze. Momo, that's silly and not an excuse to say mean things about Midoriya-tan, she scolded the blonde, who felt his cheeks turn red with anger. Katsuki, fine. The blonde went out to have fun in the courtyard, followed by almost everyone in the class. Izuku, Momo. Finally left in peace, Izuku was now alone with the raven-haired girl, who had an innocent smile. That wasn't funny. Momo, oh, come on. It was fun. The freckled boy looked angrily at the raven-haired girl. Alright, it wasn't that bad. I don't know why you're stressed. Izuku, I don't know. Let's see. He put a finger on his chin and thought carefully. Maybe because we've traveled back in time to one of the worst times of my life. Or because I have to endure Bakugo's beating so no one realizes I have powers. Or maybe because I have to endure the sad looks around, or perhaps because of this voice, he exclaimed angrily, and the girl caressed his cheek. Momo, look at the bright side, Izuku. Now you're with me, and I won't leave your side. She smiled, and the freckled boy sighed. Come on, let's grab something to eat. Izuku, all right. He looked at his hand, holding Momo's, and smiled sadly. I miss her. Momo, we'll make sure that doesn't happen, Izuku, and you'll see her again, if that's what you want, she said with a small smile. Izuku, no, I'll see her again, Momo. It's better this way, he said as they left. She deserves to be with someone normal, not with a powerful being who isn't fast enough to help her. Momo, you're such an idiot, Izuku. She muttered loud enough for the freckled boy to hear. Izuku, I know. He responded truthfully and followed alongside the raven-haired girl. Do you have a plan to win over Inko? Momo, fool, she murmured as they reached the courtyard. Momo smiled as she looked around her green-haired friend's living room. She always liked the idea of having a place like this. Thanks to her father and her job as a professional hero, she knew she would achieve it in due time. For now, she had to be content with spending some time in Midoriya's apartment. Momo whispered, Izuku. As she looked at the sofa where the freckled boy slept with traces of candy on his cheeks. Aw, she approached to gently stroke his hair and left her backpack nearby. Don't worry, Izuku, I'll take care of my share of the homework, she said, sitting close in case anything happened. Izuku murmured, swatting at the air, anguish evident as he breathed heavily. No. Stop. Stop. Momo tried to wake him up without success. Izuku, she moved a bit, no. No. Tears started to fall, and it was clear to the dark-haired girl what was happening. Izuku, she shouted, shaking her friend, who finally reacted. Ah. Izuku jumped up, disoriented and scared, looking around. Momo held his face, it's okay, Izuku, it's not real. She made him focus on her. Look at me, Izuku Midoriya, she commanded, and he followed. Eh? Finally focused, Izuku saw his friend with a concerned look and trembling lips. Momo? It's over, she smiled calmly, caressing his cheeks. It was just a nightmare. With a smile, she kissed his nose, and the freckled boy relaxed. Sorry, he stepped back, more composed, and looked around the room. It was just a dream, he sighed in relief and looked at his friend. Thanks. This might happen until we can medicate properly. For now, let's try to ease each panic or anxiety attack that might come our way, Momo explained, turning to a comfortable chair to continue their work. We'll change the future, Izuku, I'm sure of it. I hope so, Izuku said, putting the thoughts aside, and joined Momo. Are you done? Yes, and this is the list of schools where Kaminari and Mineta go. I need to keep an eye on them to ensure things don't progress too quickly. She placed the sheets on the table, smiling. For now, everything is fine. I'm glad to hear that, Izuku said, sitting where Momo was and looking at the girl. Mineta has a high performance despite being a child. I wonder if he'll be even smaller when he grows up, Momo pondered, looking at the ceiling. Maybe. Izuku felt his eyes heavy, he had barely slept last night, leaving its mark. Izuku, come here, Momo took his hand, and they went to the sofa. Momo put both sheets away for later. Now, she gently placed his head on her lap, you can sleep. Thanks, he felt calm for a moment. Really, thanks for everything, Momo, he said, falling asleep, and Momo smiled. I promise always to be here for you, Izuku, she whispered, running her fingers through his unruly hair. The day was so peaceful that it made her sleepy too. When Izuku's mother arrived, she smiled at the tender scene of the two children. They seemed like a couple, and neither of them realized it. Silently, she went to the kitchen to unpack the groceries and prepare dinner, giving a final glance to the living room where the kids remained. Inko was grateful that Momo had entered her son's life. Izuku had changed a bit after the hospital visit. He stopped watching the All Might video, became more attached to her and her husband, almost not letting his father go to work. Inko knew he was hiding something beyond the pain of not being able to fulfill his dream. If only he had a quirk. She shook off those thoughts and continued her tasks. She couldn't follow him everywhere, and she appreciated that Momo was so close to him. At least she was sure her son had a friend by his side in his heaviest or painful moments. What a pleasant surprise it was when Izuku brought Momo last Tuesday, declaring she was his best friend in the whole wide world. It almost flooded the apartment. Momo-chan, Izuku, wake up, Inko spoke to both, watching them stir and get more comfortable. Wake up, or I'll eat the cookies myself. I'll go first. Izuku rushed to the table with a plate of cookies, ignoring his friend's pout. Midoriya, you fool, Momo approached, trying to prevent him from eating too many cookies, she wanted some too. This is how their weeks passed. The Yaoyorozu and Midoriya families got to know each other, and soon, the Bakugo family joined in due to the friendship between Mitsuki and Inko. Katsuki could barely stand Deku, but with Momo, it was a different story. His pride didn't let him say anything, but he liked the dark-haired girl since the incident with Deku. He had an eye on her, and every chance he got, he tried to show Momo how cool he was and how foolish Deku was for not having a quirk. It burned him every time Momo ignored him and chose to be with Izuku. The two got along so well that jealousy played its part, sparking a new conflict with Deku every day just because Yaoyorozu was with him and not Bakugo. Momo acted as a mediator, trying to make Bakugo see how foolish it was and that it was best not to bother. If no one was going to scold the blonde for his wrongdoings, Momo would do it. This way, Bakugo would start questioning whether what he did was right or wrong, and it would be a mini victory for the girl. Deku. The blonde exploded, hitting the boy's chest, who fell to the ground. I told you no. But I didn't even say anything. Izuku complained just as the dark-haired girl entered the playground. Hi, Momo. With an innocent smile, Katsuki went to the girl, who sighed and went to her friend, ignoring the blonde. Are you okay, Izuku? She helped the green-haired boy up carefully. My chest hurts, he leaned on the girl, and both slowly headed to the door. Bakugo, you're an idiot. Momo stuck her tongue out and went with her friend to the infirmary. Wait. He tried to follow the girl, but her angry look stopped him. TSK, he turned away, trying not to show his embarrassment. The blonde had asked his parents how to impress a girl, and the answer was simple: be chivalrous, show how good you are. Of course, Katsuki understood it differently, thinking that showing how powerful his quirk was would be the best way to prove his worth, especially to the weakest kid of all. I still don't understand why you don't defend yourself, Momo murmured indignantly to her friend, who kept his gaze fixed on the ground. You can defeat him with a single punch. Because it would look weird if a quirkless person defended himself and won. I can't do that, and everyone will think I have a quirk. They'll spread the gossip to Mom, and she'll take me back to Dr. Garaki, discovering All for One, and then they'll kidnap me. All for One gets the little I have from both quirks, more powerful, and the world ends up worse than it's supposed to be, he explained, looking at the girl who became saddened. I'm sorry, I didn't think it through, she spoke softly not to upset him too much. No, you apologize, Momo. I'm being stupid because of everything that happened, is happening, and will happen. It's the stress of reliving all this that's talking, he assured his friend, who clung to him. We'll get through this, Izuku, she smiled at the green-haired boy, and they continued to the infirmary. Days passed for both time travelers. Izuku experienced a significant change in the abuse and teasing for not having a quirk, thanks to Momo always being there to convince the bullies that what they were doing was stupid and unfounded. Finally, Izuku could live a childhood in peace without causing psychological damage that would take a long time to heal. As for their grand plan, things were not going well. Momo knew from Izuku what the teachers did to push Bakugo to be the best of the best, bringing with it the belief that Izuku was a good-for-nothing because he lacked power. Despite Momo managing to distance Bakugo's henchman and making him appear as the bully of the class, he still enjoyed the admiration of the teachers. No matter how many times the Yaoyorozu family replaced the teachers, the result was the same, Bakugo being acclaimed by authority figures, giving him the freedom to do almost anything. For Izuku, it was clear what was happening with those idiots. Seeing them mold Bakugo, who would be a hero in the future, brought them pride, a pride they had never had before. When the opportunity arose, they seized it. No matter how wretched Bakugo became, he would always be supported by such teachers. The plan was not going as expected. Katsuki interrupted Momo as she was getting ready to leave. Hey, Momo. Yeah, Bakatsuki? She spoke, not eager to talk to the blonde. There's a new cafe nearby, and, well. His nerves kicked in. He had liked the dark-haired girl for a while, and being so stubborn, he wouldn't accept a no for an answer. I was wondering if. I'm not interested in going anywhere with you, she said angrily and walked away. Over the years, the blonde had been a nuisance, bothering some poor kid with an extravagant quirk when not annoying Izuku for being with Momo. The blonde sighed in frustration, once again rejected, and it was getting on his nerves. The dark-haired girl always treated him this way, sweet and kind with all her classmates but cold with him. Many times, he ordered teachers to place them on the same work team during sessions of study and romance, but every time that happened, Momo got upset and convinced the teacher that it was a bad idea. What annoyed him the most was her relationship with Deku. There was nothing he hated more in the world than seeing his dark-haired princess with the nuisance that was Deku. Both had this romantic atmosphere all the time, and it annoyed Bakugo. They were so darn close that you could see the love between them, and that bothered Bakugo. He felt a lot of jealousy towards Deku for it, but he couldn't do much thanks to the same dark-haired girl. Both Momo and Izuku went to Katsuki's mother to accuse him of what he was doing, another attempt by Momo to prevent Bakugo from ending up as he did. Of course, his mother didn't like it, and it was clear he had to stay away from both. So, as long as he stayed away from them, his mother would allow him to be in the same school as his crush. A simple deal that, for the time being, worked, no matter how much he hated seeing an idiot so close to the dark-haired girl. You know? When you said about changing Bakugo's mindset, I didn't think your idea included making him fall in love, Izuku teased his friend beside him, who sighed. Don't remind me. I didn't even know that thing could feel love. She felt disgusted just thinking about it and shook her head many times trying to get rid of that thought. By the way, where are we going? I'm going to Dagoba Beach. You're just following me out of habit, he said, continuing his way, ignoring his friend's pout. Fool, she muttered, catching up with the green-haired boy. What are you going to do? As far as I remember, you're not supposed to be there for another 2 years. Exactly, Momo. I plan to clean Dagoba Beach ahead of time, he smiled at his friend's surprise. I need to be in good physical condition for when All Might gives me one for all. Until we enter high school, I couldn't do it. I always had Mom on my case. At this point, I'm supposed to get lost in the streets, seeing what I'm never supposed to be. Why would you do that? I mean, you'll achieve it anyway in 10 months. Why rush? The pensive look on Momo's face showed she didn't quite understand. The answer is simple because I want to, he smiled, and they continued walking. I don't want to waste my time with something I've already done and memorized. I'll take this opportunity to become stronger in one go for when I receive one for all. Shouldn't you already have one for all? I thought you had all for one. Momo nodded to her own question. Remember that to control all for one, I had to merge it with one for all. I literally combined both quirks, and now that I'm like this, I've lost most of my qualities and powers. I rewound our time, think of it as rewinding a movie to a certain point. It's the same concept. I barely have any power, and unfortunately, and for the sake of the plot, one for all is not included among them. Much of the power returned to Toshinori. Does that mean you have to get everything back again? Momo asked, shocked, as they descended the stairs leading to the garbage-filled beach. I tried to preserve it, but even with the rewind control, I couldn't do it, so this is the other option, he said, leaving his yellow suitcase on the side and stretching to start. You don't need to be here. Your parents will probably ask where you are. I told Dad that I would be with you, so it's not a problem. Besides, she went to a nearby bench and sat down. I want to see your performance and be here when you faint from not listening to me when you overstrain yourself. You know me very well, Momo, he spoke with a smile to his friend, moving away to some point within the garbage. More than the others. She looked at some point in the trash, recalling the future. Hee hee. She smiled foolishly, continuing to ramble until she blushed, remembering it. No. Bad Momo, that won't happen again, she scolded herself, slapping her cheeks. Thinking again about what didn't happen? Izuku arrived in front of her with some garbage in his hands. Shut up. She turned her head not to look at him and stayed that way. Do you need anything? Is there any way to bring garbage trucks for collection? I don't think small trash bins are enough for the whole beach, he said. Momo sighed, calming her blush. I think my dad invested in a garbage collector a year ago. Give me a minute. The dark-haired girl wrote to her father about the situation. Her hero father's green-haired friend wanted to clean a beach, and for his freckles. He would. All right. While we wait. Izuku sat next to the dark-haired girl, leaving the garbage on the sandy ground. I'm going to take a nap, he lay on her shoulder, and she unconsciously smiled. Momo sighed in the limousine her father sent to pick her up, her frustration evident due to recent events. 2 weeks ago, Izuku started cleaning the beach and using it for training. Momo, constantly pushing him to not exceed his limits, had more time this time, but he still pushed himself too hard, leaving him tired. She remembered how much he had pushed himself in the war. Apart from that, there was the Bakugo situation, a total failure. Despite distancing himself from his minions and changing teachers, some still supported him as a bully. With her growing affection for Izuku, Bakugo's hatred towards him increased. It was clear that an event triggering everything would happen sooner. What bothered her the most today was that Izuku had the audacity to go on a date with one of their classmates. Since Momo intervened, Izuku had more company, not exactly friends but not enemies either. Many girls, attracted to Izuku's fluffy hair, wanted to get closer. One even dared to ask him out, making Momo feel jealous. It was silly, they were just friends, not in a relationship. Feeling jealous because her friend enjoyed a romantic outing was ridiculous. She couldn't go out due to Bakugo, who kept her away, and everyone feared being under the explosive blonde's scrutiny. She wouldn't start dating Shoto until their 3rd year at UA. While her friend had fun, she felt jealous. Momo, her mother called, amused. Momo had been murmuring to herself for a long time while doing her homework. Dear. Momo muttered without paying attention to the stupid assignment, foolish Izuku. Momo. Her mother shook her shoulder, and she reacted. Huh? She looked at her notebook filled with doodles from her daydreaming. Mom? She looked at her mother, who had a mocking smile. Can you calm down for a minute and stop muttering like that? I swear you not only absorb Izuku's good qualities but also his nonsense. The younger raven-haired girl blushed at her mother's words and started babbling nonsensically. Did something happen with Izuku-san? Nothing, Mom, just. She closed her notebook, realizing she wouldn't continue studying. Izuku is on a date, and well. Jealous? Her mother said with a teasing smile. Mom. She blushed at her mother's laughter, teasing her daughter. I'm just joking, her mother reassured, patting her daughter's head, who remained embarrassed. It's normal to feel jealous. You've been close since childhood. It's just. What if he's being used or made fun of? What if he doesn't show up, and they laugh at Izuku? He already has so much to worry about and is under so much stress for. You know. She confessed to her mother, who smiled. Momo dear, Izuku is no longer a child who needs your protection. He has grown up, and you have to believe in him. He knows how to take care of himself. Her daughter didn't seem convinced. Izuku, and above all, you don't have to worry about keeping me away. The freckled boy appeared at the door, surprising both. Hello. Izuku-san, I thought you were on a date. And I was. Until the overprotective brother showed up and dragged her away, he smiled, recalling the incident. So, she didn't play with you? Momo asked. The freckled boy shook his head. Her friends weren't there to tease you? He shook his head again. No. Momo, nothing bad happened, he said, stopping her excuses. Relax and come train with me, you also want to be a hero. The raven-haired girl nodded and hugged her mother before leaving with her friend. Did something happen, right? The freckled boy sighed, walking towards the exit with his friend. With the girl, no, but... He got serious, following his path. I saw Toga nearby. The raven-haired girl looked at him with surprise. No. The freckled boy started laughing. Izuku, I know what you're thinking, but it's crazy, and we're not sure she'll help us. Come on, she'll be a good ally. We prevent her from killing a bunch of people, and, above all, we have a way to infiltrate everywhere. The raven-haired girl remained hesitant. I don't want her for that, and that's what I know. You used the same excuse when you took her out of prison to help you with Bakugo. The freckled boy became static. I'll repeat what Ochako said back then, you're sending a mentally unstable girl to the slaughter. Maybe, but... The raven-haired girl hardened her gaze, and the freckled boy yielded. The last time, Toga ended up in a mental hospital tied to a bed and sedated so she wouldn't harm anyone because Mineta made her do those atrocities. The freckled boy lowered his gaze. I understand you want to fix things and prevent the world from being destroyed, but not at the expense of people. You're not Bakugo to do that. The freckled boy remained with a lowered gaze. Sorry, he murmured, standing still. I can't blame you for thinking like a war general. You were that for so long that I'm surprised you don't have more scars than you already do. The raven-haired girl approached to take her friend's hand and continued walking. There are other ways to do things. I suppose. He walked hand in hand with Momo without knowing exactly where to go. I invite you to coffee, she spoke without looking at him. They both knew he needed it. They walked in peaceful silence. Momo had no problem with that. With that scolding she gave him, it was clear she would bring out the good in Izuku. She was more his conscience than his own. The green-haired boy only analyzed it. In the future, a week after those three did the damage, Izuku managed to get Toga out to gather evidence against them. He mistakenly believed he could use the laws to his advantage, and the result was terrible for both Toga and those three. You should stop getting lost in your memories, Momo said, pulling the freckled boy out of his thoughts. What's done is done, you always said that. Yes, what I didn't tell you is that what I did haunted me. Destroying mountains, ravaging seas, you understand. The raven-haired girl shook her head. For the first time, the freckled boy seemed weak, which was strange. I thought you could call Toga. The freckled boy looked at her surprised. I don't want you to use her for your plans, I want you to get her out of being a villain. That way, we have an ally, and the League loses one of its most powerful pieces. Are you sure about that? Toga is currently being treated like a demon by her family. It won't be long before she kills her crush. I know that, so we have to get her out of her house and into a better home, she spoke confidently. And how do you plan? Did you contact child services already? He asked. The raven-haired girl nodded. You know that in the hands of the government, she'll become Kaina 2.0? That's why I called a reporter to cover the story. The government won't touch her for fear of being discovered, and don't worry. She stopped the freckled boy before he said something. Chitose is far from finding out, and if she still tries something, the Yaoyorozu company falls before the Yaoyorozu, so if they try something, we destroy them in every possible way. And that's why you were the main threat to our enemies, Miss. I destroyed countries like they were made of paper. The raven-haired girl blushed at that. Or should I call you? Finish that sentence, and I swear the place you'll frequent as an adult will turn into a shopping mall that bans katsudon. The freckled boy fell silent and continued waiting for the coffee. Silly, he murmured to the raven-haired girl, who sighed. Himiko Toga, a member of the League of Villains and one of the leaders of the Paranormal Liberation Front, with an A rank in assassinations, was killed by heroes following Dynamite's followers after wiping out most of Grape Juice's supporters. Very few knew what truly drove Toga to become the terrifying and psychotic villain capable of taking love to a completely new and distorted level. Toga always felt a nearly magnetic attraction to blood. Some attributed it to her quirk, while others thought she simply liked blood in every humanly possible way. However, the reason was entirely different. Her own family and everyone around her drove her mad. They treated her like a weirdo when she began showing signs of not being normal. Everything exploded when her first crush came in high school. Once again, she was treated as an oddball, despite trying to fit in and make a few friends. Being rejected and constantly reminded that she would never be normal broke her mind, leading to her murders, starting with that boy, and taking his blood. She escaped and fled with the sole illusion of living like those she loved, following Stain after seeing him. With all this in mind, Izuku brought Toga together with the Yaoyorozu. His friend was a mastermind, there was no doubt about it. She proposed one of the weirdest and most curious things Izuku had ever heard, and he had heard a guy with a pumpkin head claim to be an omnipotent being after overheating. The plan was simple: they would remove Toga from the toxic and dangerous environment she was in and keep her under the wing of love and care from the Yaoyorozu, using money, obviously. Momo called the authorities when there were signs that Toga was living with domestic violence and discrimination. She was put under government control for a short time since the raven-haired girl recommended her to her parents. At first, they doubted their daughter, of course. Taking in a mentally unstable girl like a kind of daughter would bring many problems to the two adults. Once again, Momo demonstrated her great intellect by pointing out that adopting the girl and making her a respectable lady would be seen as a pure act, boosting their reputation. She also mentioned that, as Momo wanted to be a hero, she couldn't inherit the family business. Her parents, not wanting another child, could adopt Toga to point her in a direction. Of course, her father included Izuku in this, calling him his illegitimate son and saying he could inherit the companies if he wanted. However, the freckled boy rejected that, supporting his friend to the end. For both adults, their daughter turned out to be quite stubborn, just like her mother. In the end, after a couple of weeks, Toga was under the care of the Yaoyorozu. She couldn't believe her luck when she saw the black-haired girl and her broccoli friend at the door of the grand mansion with a red fruit cake that Toga swore was filled with something similar to blood. Within 2 minutes in that house, she felt better than her entire life with her biological family. Toga, I still don't understand. She looked at both who were fighting over a piece of cake. Why do you do all this? Momo, for the simple reason that you deserve a good life, Toga-san. She smiled at the blonde, who was surprised. Izuku, also, I understand perfectly what it's like to be looked at like a weirdo all the time. I'm literally the most peculiar in a world of powers. He said with a smile to the blonde, don't think we're going to change who you are or anything. You can be whoever you want in front of us. The blonde looked at her two saviors as if they were gods descended to earth. Momo, you just have to know how to control your impulses, and believe me, it's easier than you think. Toga, so, is it okay that I like blood? She asked eagerly. Her biological parents were quite strict about that little detail. Momo, as long as you don't take it to the extreme, it's fine. And since you consider it a problem, I have the solution. She smiled at her new sister, who didn't understand anything. Izuku, you'll be given a supplement that's very similar to blood. The only thing is that it's not blood, and it probably has the same metallic taste. The blonde lowered her gaze, unable to believe her luck. So, I don't have to. Izuku, you don't have to pretend to be something you're not, Toga. Here, you're free to do almost anything you please. Unfortunately, there are some rules that, if broken, can get you into trouble. He said, stroking the blonde's hair. Momo, what do you say, Toga-san? Do you want to be part of my family? She asked the girl, who stood up with a genuine smile and tears in her eyes. Toga, yes, I want to. Without hesitation, she went to hug her new sister under Izuku's gaze. And you too. She dragged the freckled boy into a hug, the three of them. Thank you. Really, thank you. Momo, it's nothing, she smiled in the embrace. It was comforting to hear someone appreciate being saved so much. Izuku, you know, I miss the feeling of joy that comes from saving someone from the deepest despair. He said mentally to his friend, who nodded, well, let's hope things go well this time. The blonde was there in front of the cheerful view of Momo. Toga, so, what now? She asked her sister, who smiled. Momo, I'm going to show you around, you'll choose your room, we'll arrange your things, and you'll be integrated into the family. Simple. Izuku, in addition to that, since the Yaoyorozu know how people with such a unique quirk are treated, you'll have private tutoring so you don't fall behind in academics. Toga, can we go out after that? She asked excitedly about doing something with her new family. Momo, of course, there are many places to go, or, of course, if Mr. I'm busy with my training is available, he can accompany us. She said to her friend, who shook his head. Izuku, you do your best to keep me away from the beach. You're so mean, my god. He approached Toga, putting a hand on her shoulder. No more fear, and no more sleeping alone. I hope you enjoy your life here, Toga. Toga, of course, Izuku-kun, the blonde pounced on the freckled boy, who fell to the floor laughing. Now I have 2 older brothers. Momo, eh? Toga, yes, because both Momo-chan and Izuku-kun are now my family, she declared, rubbing her cheek against Izuku's as he allowed it. Izuku, you're quite a case, T. Oga, the freckled boy stayed there before Momo's cheerful view. Momo, is this some kind of attempt to redeem your past with her? She asked, thinking her friend couldn't hear her. Izuku, this time, I'll try not to mess things up. Thanks for always being my conscience, Momo. The black-haired girl looked at her friend, who stuck out his tongue. Momo, I thought Mandalay couldn't hear what was being said back, she pouted at her friend, who smiled. Izuku, it's not the only quirk I retained, silly. Momo, silly, she murmured to herself, watching as Toga and Izuku played. Hey, don't exclude me, the black-haired girl went to play too. The day was beautiful at the beach, now free of any waste or trace of garbage. It was only 6 in the morning on the big day. It had been a good 3 years of effort on Izuku's part, finally finishing the last pile of garbage. Thanks to Momo, he didn't overexert himself too much. The raven-haired girl was always with him at the beach, whether cleaning it or training his body. It served as a good distraction from what was happening at school. At the school Izuku and Momo attended, things had gone awry. Bakugo had become some kind of king, almost untouchable. He bullied others without much consequence, and the attempts to stop him were ineffective. There were occasional confrontations with Bakugo and his lackeys, not as severe as they should have been, but still stressful, mainly due to Bakugo's obvious jealousy over Momo. Only he believed he had the right to be with a queen like Momo. He declared himself king and queen in his head, as Momo rejected him again and again. Momo, do we really need to wake up so early? She spoke, half asleep, without her ponytail and in her pajamas. Izuku, yes, he said, lying on the sand in front of her, with dirt on his cheeks but a bright smile. I wanted you to be the first to see the result of this. Thanks for always being there for me, Momo. Momo, no problem, she yawned and stretched. Not much time left to get ready, today is the day, right? She asked, rubbing her eyes, shaking off sleep. Izuku, that's right, he got up, looking at his shirt. This thing is a mess. Without hesitation, he took off the old shirt he wore when cleaning the beach. Momo, can you hand me my other shirt? He asked his friend, who blushed with a nosebleed. Momo, Greek god, the image before her was too much for her mind, such a sensual deity in front of her. Adonis couldn't compare to the sculpted body of her friend, shamelessly displaying a teenage boy whose hormones were starting to stir. Oh. Izuku, oh. He approached the side of the raven-haired girl, who entered a fantasy if her lost gaze indicated so. You really have a problem. He teased, pulling her cheek, making Yaoyorozu react. Momo, hey. You don't have to be so mean, she complained when the freckled boy let go of her, now wearing his all-might shirt. It's not my fault you've become so sexy, Izuku. You can't blame me for fantasizing. Izuku, I don't blame you, I just ask that you don't do it in front of me. He looked at the sky, which was slowly turning bluer. It will take a long time if you call your chauffeur. Momo, what do you suggest? She asked, more awake now. Her friend put on that terrifying smile that indicated something mischievous. Oh no. Izuku, how long has it been since we bent space to go from one place to another? It will be fun. He extended his hand to Momo, who sighed. Momo, you're lucky I couldn't eat anything, and we're very late. She took her friend's hand, and both disappeared from the place. They appeared in Momo's room, Izuku with an innocent smile, and his friend feeling extremely nauseous. His quirk always had the flaw of making people feel dizzy for a few minutes after its use. Of course, Momo couldn't complain right now. It was the easiest way to get from one place to another in the shortest time possible. Izuku, see you at school, he murmured to the green-faced girl sitting on her bed, trying not to vomit. She didn't want to wake up Toga or Momo's parents. Momo, when I can move, you'll pay, Izuku, she threatened the freckled boy in her head, who stuck out his tongue before disappearing in the same way he came. She was the first to be ready today. She and her sister Toga would go out together to buy a few things. She would let Izuku work his magic as a hero without being a hero and doing something heroes should do but don't. Who cares? Everyone wants to be heroes. The teacher threw the students' papers into the air, followed by all the students using their quirks. Katsuki, please, his arrogant tone caught everyone's attention. Don't compare me to these extras. He stood up with great enthusiasm in his voice. I'm going to be the best hero. Momo, yeah, right, she thought with sarcasm. Teacher, Katsuki is going to UA, right? Murmurs began, both from those who believed he wouldn't make it and those who supported him, especially the girls who put him on a pedestal, and also Yaoyorozu and Midoriya. The last part surprised almost everyone. There were a few who felt sorry for the freckled boy. Bakugo, on the other hand, glared at Izuku, who smiled nervously. Teacher, I hope Midoriya-kun can, some girls whispered, still harboring a certain fondness for the cute freckled boy. Izuku, of course, I can, damn idiots, only Momo noticed the twitch in his eye. In the following classes, Izuku noticed Bakugo's anger and deathly glare behind him. He clung as much as he could to Momo, knowing what would happen at the end. Momo had to leave first so that Bakugo could stop Izuku and intimidate him to prevent the freckled boy's idea of going to UA. Even with all the time, Izuku wondered if Bakugo was afraid that he would pass without powers, and he wouldn't. Just as it had to happen, Bakugo exploded a notebook that Izuku used to pretend he was only watching heroes from afar. It exploded and landed in the water in front of the nervous Izuku, who sadly left the school, picked up that notebook with the compassionate looks of everyone, and walked away with a single destination. He passed through that tunnel where he was originally caught by the slime man, or at least Izuku thought it was a man, he never said if it was something else. Like it happened originally, the living slime gradually enveloped him, but this time, he resisted more. In the end, it was good to take the diving course with Momo and Toga. All Might appeared, delivering a blow that pushed the villain away from Izuku, who fell unconscious due to lack of air. It was 30 minutes in which Izuku secretly watched his idol and future mentor leave an autograph in the book. He woke up with excitement to see his idol again. One good thing about going back in time was having the people he cared about back. Bakugo was about to leave since his time was running out, to which Izuku jumped and clung to the American's pants with force. Momo sighed as she exited the music store where she was. The report about what happened with Izuku quickly surfaced, and, of course, those words brought two things. Firstly, it was now more than obvious why All Might chose him as a successor. Secondly, it was clear that such thoughts would attract villains. She just hoped that Freckles wouldn't cause too much harm to anyone trying to use him. Toga, Momo nay, the blonde diverted her attention, smearing a bit of ice cream on the raven-haired girl's cheek. Momo, huh? Toga-chan, she wiped off the ice cream, amused by her sister's laughter. Toga, are you okay? She asked, holding back her laughter. Her sister seemed to be lost in her thoughts again. Momo, yes, just. Toga, worried about Izuku? She said mockingly. Her sister only nodded. You like him? Momo, huh? She finally caught on and looked at her sister, who was laughing at her. I think you're confusing things, Toga. Izuku is just a friend. Toga, sure, she pouted, annoyed by her sister's denial. You're always together, he sleeps comfortably on your lap, and you get jealous when he goes on dates with other girls. The raven-haired girl sighed, aware of how things looked. Momo, it's just concern. Izuku can be a bit innocent, and protecting him is my duty as his friend, she declared to her sister, who didn't believe it. Besides, I lost that chance to love him a long time ago. She suddenly became depressed, thinking about the past. Flashback. It was a stormy night when it happened. Momo was seriously worried about what was happening a few streets away from where she patrolled. It was almost the end of the war, and the heroine Krichi knew that her fiancé had done something reckless in the desperation of losing. Momo and Shoto took opposing sides at the start of the war. The two-color was on the enemy side, believing that what Izuku did to those three was extreme and ended up on the wrong side, always losing to Deku, leading to this. One night, when Deku was resting from his constant battles on the eastern front of what was left of Russia, he decided to return to Japan, and of course, Shoto found out. He planned to kill him, and Momo was going to stop him. She didn't make it in time. Momo climbed those stairs until she was on the rooftop and saw Izuku standing there in his costume, completely clean, as if there weren't four bodies around him. The most noticeable was the hero ingenium on one side. Izuku looked at the sky, crying, or so she thought. Izuku, Momo, he said calmly, trying to be the strong hero he knew he was. I'm sorry, the freckled guy took a step aside, revealing Shoto's body with a hole in his chest and blood flowing from his mouth. Tears were streaming from his eyes. Momo, Shoto, she approached her fiancé's body slowly, holding back the urge to cry. She knew perfectly well that the bicolor was going to do this, and yet, no. Izuku, I really am sorry. The freckled guy stood still, waiting for the raven-haired girl to scream and blame him. Momo, Izuku, contrary to what the green-haired guy expected, the raven-haired girl threw herself to hug him, and it hurt him too to kill his best friend. I'm sorry. Sorry. End of flashback. Toga, Momo, the blonde screamed, and the raven-haired girl woke up, watching her sister being taken away by a guy. Momo, Toga-chan, the raven-haired girl went to the blonde, who was struggling to free herself from the guy. I wouldn't do that if I were you, princess, a guy spoke behind Momo, putting a gun to her back. The job turned out to be easier than they estimated. Momo, TSK, she stood still, knowing what would happen. What do you want? A very good opportunity, he led the raven-haired girl to where his partner was, just away from the people. Momo, you're mistaken about something, you idiots, and that's that we don't need protection. The cold tone and intimidating aura made both idiots tense. Toga smiled at how her sister acted. Stop joking, he didn't finish speaking when he felt a sharp pain in his private parts. Momo, I'm not joking, the raven-haired girl kicked his stomach and hit his head against the wall before dodging the other guy who wanted to take advantage of the fact that she didn't know what she was doing. Toga, hey, I want to have fun too. With a pout, she threw herself at the guy who kidnapped her, scratching his face and biting his ear, trying to rip it off. He tried to get rid of the blonde when he received a punch in the stomach that took his breath away. Momo, the reason we don't have guards watching what we do is that we can take care of ourselves. Pieces of human attempts. A light was seen in her hand from which a barbed wire came out. You are the worst scum I hate, and your punishment will be painful. The next thing heard were the agonizing screams of both guys and Toga's laughter, which helped her sister in this. On the other side of the city, Izuku sighed in his bed. It turned out better than it originally had to happen. All Might found him quickly when he was going home after Bakugo didn't thank them for saving him and gave the speech he already knew. Only this time, he didn't cry and refuted breaking someone's dream so coldly and crudely. He could have been gentler with his words because, if he hadn't been, Izuku could have jumped right there and ended his life. Of course, he promised to be at Dagoba Beach the next day. Izuku did well in hiding the state of the beach from anyone who didn't go, just like his physical state. He needed to surprise All Might so that he wouldn't hesitate to give him One for All right there. He reduced All Might's time in exchange for controlling One for All in less time. He knew that being in contact with the core, the previous carriers would see the remnants of All for One inside him, and of course, the questions would come, and he had to answer well so that they didn't consider him unworthy. Izuku, you're crazy, Momo, he whispered into the air, feeling perfectly how his friend enjoyed torturing those two who tried to kidnap them. I don't know if Toga is okay with you. She'll become more bloodthirsty with you. Momo, shut up. That's not true. You know how much I hate perverts and opportunists, she shouted in the green-haired guy's head, who laughed at his friend. Izuku. Good night, Momo. Soon, I'll have to do one of the most important and difficult things in this crazy plan, he sighed again before lying down to sleep. Izuku was excited. He had arrived an hour earlier than asked, not just out of excitement. He was quite used to waking up early because he enjoyed training at that time and witnessing the beautiful sunrises at the beach. It was a pleasure he discovered now that his days didn't involve destroying cities or defeating hordes of villains, coming at him in groups of 50. He didn't even know how he survived all that. Now that he was in a more relaxed state, he started to reflect on what had happened after agreeing to change the timeline. Comparing how things unfolded, Bakugo's beatings had significantly decreased, thanks to Momo. Her unexpected presence caused many positive changes, although it didn't alter Bakugo's behavior. His father still left for work, but now he was more willing to talk to Izuku and pay more attention to Inko. Thanks to this small intervention, Mom didn't fall into depression, and she wasn't as overweight as she should be at this point. If she gained some weight, it was nothing compared to before. Toshinori, Midoriya kid? The blonde had arrived 15 minutes early to assess how affected the beach was and set the limit his successor had to respect. The boy looked very thin, and his bones had a lot of work ahead. Izuku, hi, he replied with a smile to the surprised blonde. Toshinori, why are you awake so early? Izuku, I train, or at least I used to. I'm a bit tired, so I decided to rest, he said, drinking from the water bottle he brought. Toshinori, you've just started by the looks of it, he smiled somewhat proud of the freckled boy, that's a good change. Izuku, it's not something I haven't done since I was 13, he revealed, surprising the blonde. Toshinori, you've been training since before? The green-haired boy nodded, still gazing at the horizon. Well, that makes things easier. Let's go to the bee. He was surprised to see the supposed trash-filled beach completely clean, not a trace of garbage anywhere. Well, this changes my plans. Izuku, you wanted me to train by cleaning this beach, right? He spoke with a small smile. The American just nodded at what his successor said. I've been cleaning this beach for 2 years. It's where I trained to be a hero even without a quirk. Toshinori, you cleaned this beach? He looked at the freckled boy in disbelief. It doesn't look like it. Izuku, how about this? Let's fight, All Might. The American was surprised as the freckled boy walked in front of him, taking off his jacket and stretching a bit. You test how suitable I am, and I get a good battle. What do you think? Toshinori, you're crazy, kid. Izuku, you're crazy if you think I want to fight with your quirk active. Just change form, and we're good without powers. The freckled boy spoke confidently, and the blonde smiled. Toshinori, if that's what you want. The blonde took off his coat and, as the freckled boy had said, transformed into his strongest form. I hope you're ready, Midoriya kid. Izuku, always. He spoke seriously as the American, with his usual smile, started with a punch that the freckled boy dodged. Blow by blow, All Might realized that the freckled boy had a lot of experience in fights, much more than a boy his age should have. Each punch from the freckled boy was precise and strong, with tricks to help destabilize his opponent, who in this case was All Might. The freckled boy had a very curious way of fighting, almost animalistic. He was very close to the ground, like a predator stalking and attacking All Might's legs with charges or punches to make him fall. He threw sand into the eyes in an attempt to secure his victory. All Might enjoyed the fight, especially because it was without any quirk. The green-haired boy used his height to overcome a hero like All Might. Toshinori, not bad, young man. With a punch, he sent the freckled boy far, who remained standing. Good tactics, suitable for your personality. You make good use of the terrain and everything at your disposal to win. You're impressive, Midoriya. The blonde stopped the fight, approaching the green-haired boy. Izuku, so, did I impress you? He asked, breathing heavily. With one punch, he matched the damage Izuku had slowly inflicted on him. Toshinori, quite a bit. With a puff of smoke, he returned to normal, still with his smile. You show exceptional mental and physical abilities, Midoriya Izuku, much more than I expected or could think of. You remain calm in a fight against me, someone who surpasses you in strength and size. It's clear. He put a hand in his hair, removing one. I hate to say this, but right now, this is the best option since you need my DNA to get my power, and I don't want things to be weirder than they already are. So, he extended the blonde hair to the freckled boy, who sighed, could you eat this hair? Izuku, fine. He took that blonde strand and ate it. One of the downsides of this, it tastes like a lot of conditioner. Toshinori, I apologize for that. To keep my hair the way it is, a lot of treatment is necessary. He excused himself as the freckled boy looked at his hands, not expecting anything. Izuku, I feel the same, he spoke, keeping up appearances. Toshinori, of course, your body needs to digest it first. You'll notice the change in a few hours, he assured his successor, feeling excited about it. When you feel ready and sense the power flowing, call me. We have exactly 10 months to teach you how to use it. Izuku, sure, he said excitedly, 10 months to convince Yoichi-san and the others that I'm good. I hope they let me speak. Looking at the sky, he realized that there was little time left before Mom woke up. I have to go, All Might. See you later. The freckled boy ran off, disappearing into the streets. Upon arriving home, he was not greeted by a tender Inko with breakfast ready for a mothersome day. This time, an aura of 1,000 demons surrounded her. Izuku was supposed to return a long time ago, and obviously, he didn't. Inko, what's your excuse? She spoke deathly calm, scaring her son. Izuku, there was an old lady I helped with her groceries, he said with the first excuse that came to mind. Inko, Izuku, the freckled boy sweated cold and accepted his fate, don't lie. The scream was heard all the way to the Yaoyorozu mansion. Toga assumed it was a girl being attacked, while Momo prayed for her friend's well-being. She had heard him scream like that before, and it was never for anything good. The evening came, and Izuku felt something strange in his stomach. That feeling of energy rising to his head. He excused himself with his mother during dinner and went to bed. It was time to talk to those ancient carriers. Izuku, well. Let's get this over with, he breathed calmly, closing his eyes and quickly losing all sense of everything. Izuku woke up in front of the carrier's chairs, 7 with an 8th chair empty, surrounded by a golden aura. Angry glares from everyone, except for Yoichi, who remained neutral towards the freckled boy. Izuku, this place is deplorable. You should consider changing it. It's too gloomy to be in front of the most incredible heroes of your time, the first thing he blurted out, standing up and stretching even though it served no purpose. Nana, who are you, kid? The black-haired woman spoke, quite attentive to what the child could do. Daigoro, brat, do you know what you have here? You better have an explanation, he spoke angrily to the new carrier. It's already surprising to see that you have different powers like that being, now can you manipulate one for all so extremely? Yoichi, let him speak. We're not ones to judge. If Toshinori chose him, let the kid speak before saying anything, he recommended to the others, who fell silent. Go ahead, speak, ninth. Izuku, thank you, Yoichi-san, he smiled at everyone's confusion, who didn't believe the freckled boy knew about his predecessor. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Midoriya Izuku, the greatest carrier of One for All, the third carrier of All for One, symbol of human hope, Green Demon, Grand General of the United Alliance, and a time traveler.